I'm William Kentridge. I am an artist based in Johannesburg, South Africa, where I make a variety of things. Everything starts as a drawing, but sometimes those drawings become etchings, or the drawings become animated films, and sometimes the animated films become pieces of theatre. So I work across a wide variety of materials, but always from my studio in Johannesburg.
When we first saw William Kentridge's work, we were immediately impressed by his artistic skill and inventiveness. At the same time, we were moved by his sense of humanity. We decided that we wanted to learn more about William and also begin to collect his work.
It's such a strange mess. So I'm very happy to see this here. It's in a good house. It was very strange coming in to see the exhibition for the first time. Firstly, it's a very beautifully shaped exhibition, mainly of prints and some drawings. But walking around, you say, oh yes, I remember that. And there's certain images you think, oh, that one wasn't very good. And others think, oh, I knew what I was doing then. I wish I could do that now. But I realized walking through it's not a biography, but there are many biographical elements. There's my grandfather is one image, my father, my uncle. Well, the first print, the earliest print, is in fact a double portrait of my wife and myself. So this is all in amongst the work, which I never thought of as being biographical, or you can't escape your biography, I guess.
When people look at this exhibition, I want them to have an open mind about the possibility of multiple meanings.
So it's about provisional coherence. It's about things making sense, but only for a moment. It's also about us taking fragments and putting those fragments together to make sense of the world, which we do both visually with this, or particularly with the other sculpture, the nose, but also just with everything in the world, with how we take all different fragments of memories, news we've read, phone calls, and from that construct a possible coherent world that we are living in. So if you start here with your camera, sort of where my eye is here, if you put your lens of your camera right here, down and across, you should get the lattice work of the legs to line up, I think is where the camera. And then you see the nose. Yeah, that's pretty. No, back this way, I can see your monitor. There. Yeah, so that's where you would end up. So it has that, an object like this has the moment of coherence as the nose on its legs, but as one turns, the object itself loses its coherence and becomes this sort of massive chaos. And it's as if that chaos is what's in our head, but with an effort we can turn it into some coherent image. And it's the pleasure of trying to line the different pieces up as you're making the sculpture to know what it is that you're making. It makes for an agency of seeing, that it's not enough, the picture isn't there by itself as being enough. It requires the active leaping over incomprehension by the viewer to complete the work. And that I'm always interested in the way we can't resist trying to make meaning. There's always the fact that the drawing and the viewer meet halfway. So the drawing presents part of the world to you, and onto that image you project associations, knowledge, questions, riddles, and that's always the negotiation between a viewer and a picture, however much information you may have about a circumstance, about the artist. But it's very rare that there's such a clear meaning that there's a right or a wrong. There shouldn't be. If the picture is that certain, it shouldn't be a picture. Images are about ambiguity, about unfinished endings, about allowing different possibilities at the edge of meaning. These were about, these are colors. There was a kind of the anomaly was a joke, was a printed book in black and white about color, where all the different colors were simply described in black and white. So I thought, okay, I don't work with color, but let me make all these different theoretical colors, as if they've been scanned in some way, and this is the algorithm of those colors. In fact, the images were made first, and then I decided which color I thought they corresponded to. So they are ink drawings done directly onto the lino, and then cut out around them. So what you have left is the ink marks, cut out very accurately. You can see these the fine brush marks were cut out around. So each of those lines you're actually cutting everything around the line. It's a kind of nuts way of working. So there are a whole series of these different gestural quick paintings. Gestural quick paintings, then very slowly cut and accurately cut blocks.
Well, I think of Japanese
Wood block printing. The same thing where a person... Fine lines and cross-hatching cut out, leaving the cross-hatching. Insane. Well, my parents are both lawyers. My father was a very famous lawyer in South Africa and then in Britain. He was a lawyer for many of the big anti-apartheid cases, so that conversation about what was happening politically in South Africa and the apartheid regime was very much part of dinner conversation as a child. And so it certainly gave a shape to the work that was done afterwards. Not that the work is trying to illustrate those questions, but they were there in the air and couldn't be avoided. And that certainly was one of the impulses and one of the shapes to the work that I do, that it ended up figurative and not abstract, that it couldn't avoid the gaze of the world around, looking at the world around, that it didn't become entirely locked inside the studio. Studio life is a series of photogravures of images taken in the studio. During the long lockdown of COVID, when travel wasn't possible, I think if one waits for inspiration, there's no real reason to go into the studio. The energy comes from the activity of making. So even if you're feeling really flat and with nothing to say, give yourselves a couple of hours in the studio and suddenly there's a kind of different energy and different possibility. Doesn't mean that what you're drawing is any good or interesting, but the comfort it gives and the energy it gives is undeniable. But the other thing not to forget is the pleasure of doing the drawings, of outwitting what your hand thinks it knows about how to draw. So that was designed to be carried on a shoulder, held and walked with, and then you saw the projection of the silhouette on the wall as a kind of a burden or a saint, a bit like carrying a saint in a procession, carrying her.
Shadows. Why shadows?
Gosh, there we could have a whole film in itself.
I suppose so.
Shadows partly because they show you how little you are seeing and you understand all the expansion of what it is you're seeing. So you see a circle. If you see an apple, you see a circle and you recognize an apple. If you just see a circle black shadow, then is it an apple? Is it a sphere? Is it the world? All of those possibilities hang in the shadow. And the ambiguity and the push towards you making the meaning.
Yeah.
It tells you also how little you know.
Yes.
And it's about giving an image the benefit of the doubt. Say, I'm not sure why I'm doing this image, but let's see what it leads and see if it tells me what I'm doing. I mean, there's an impulse. It's not like it's coming from nowhere, but the meaning is what's there at the end.
When you spend time with William, you find someone who is very open, generous, kind, and the more we experience it, the more we like it. And I think you'll find that's true for yourself.